We've looked at it, we've sat in it, we've poked and we've prodded it, but the one thing we haven't been able to do with Nissan's new Ariya is drive it. Until now.
Okay, so we've been wanting to do this for a while, and I've managed to get hold of the keys to an Ariya at this super secret test track. But what are your first impressions of it out in the almost real world? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe and click on the bell icon, because it all helps.
So here it is out in the real world. It is Nissan's new pure electric Ariya, and I have to say, having ever only played with this in the studio, it is really quite good looking. It's clean, it's crisp, it's elegant, it's got some really nice detail, and it's actually quite a lot lower than I remember. I'm 6 feet tall, and this black roof is quite a lot further down than I thought it would be. And I still think it looks like an angry robot from the front. Okay, so it's not a very angry robot, it's more a slightly perturbed robot. And weirdly, it's a lot smaller and narrower than I thought it was when I was stood next to it in a studio. But that's not actually much of a surprise when you find out that it's based on the same structure as a Renault Megane E-Tech Electric, despite being pretty much the same size as a VW ID.4 or Skoda Enyaq. In the right colour, I think this will be striking on the road without being too wacky or attention-seeking. And the good news continues in here, because this is pretty much as I remember it. Up front, you've got a pair of 12.3-inch screens. This side is touchscreen, this side is information for the driver, and I have to say, having played with this a little bit, it's as slick and fast, as intuitive as anything else I've tried. It's got a full suite of driver assistance systems, there's loads of options. It's also got these haptic buttons in the dash and in this centre console. Now, they're not actual buttons. They're a bit like the force feedback on your phone. So when you press them, they do a little click, but there's no button underneath there. It's a really nice feature because when the car's actually switched off, they almost disappear, but they work really well because it feels like you're touching something. And also, you're not playing with a massive screen in the middle of the dash all the time, so I think it's better for concentration. Generally, I think the materials are quite nice. Everything seems to be fitting well, though these are early prototype cars, so I don't know whether these are on production, but the bottoms of the doors and the top of the dash here behind this lovely ultra suede are a bit hard plastic. We'll have to see what they're like in real production form. Generally though, I really like it. It seems comfy, it's clean, it's quite chilled, everything works really nicely. There's storage in the doors, there's storage here, it's a traditional glove box. You've got this, which I really like. See those haptic buttons? Well, this does this. Isn't that brilliant? And look, you push that back, and that's actually quite a deep extra glove box thing where you could hide things. And then you see this whole centre console. Well, one of the big advantages of having a pure electric drivetrain and a car that's designed to have that is the fact that it's got a fully flat floor. To make the most of that, you can reverse your centre console. That means that the people in the back can use it as a little table, or you get a bigger feeling of space. The one thing I did notice was that this bit down here that has the charging points in actually doesn't move with it. So it doesn't make this part of the floor any flatter, it just gives you a better feeling of space. It's clever though, because it takes the gear stick with it. Though I did notice one thing. When I get in the back, I do have to duck my head slightly to get in here. Though once I'm in, it all works perfectly. That's my driving position, and I'm 6 feet tall and I've got plenty of leg room. The other weird thing I did notice, when I open this back door, it's really light, like weirdly light. Must be a weight saving measure.
There's also a decent boot and plenty of kit, depending on which model you choose. And that ranges from a single motor base version that costs just under 42 grand, has a 63 kilowatt-hour battery and 223 miles of range, right up to the E-Force Performance for 58,440 quid that has an 87 kilowatt-hour battery, four-wheel drive and nearly 390 brake horsepower. The ones to have are probably the ones in the middle, both with the bigger battery. The one with the big battery, front-wheel drive and 240 brake horsepower unsurprisingly gets the longest range of 310 miles. And there's a 302 brake horsepower version with four-wheel drive, and they cost just over 51 grand and 53,790 pounds respectively. So no, not cheap, but at least competitive compared to other electric SUVs. Which is good because Nissan reckons that it's taken all of the best bits of its other cars and wrapped them all up inside the Ariya. So you get the electrical experience from the Nissan LEAF, you get the space efficiency and practicality from the massive selling, endlessly practical and actually quite boring Nissan Qashqai, and you also get what Nissan calls the spiritual successor to the four-wheel drive systems in the GTR sports car,
in the e-Force system that's present on the Ariya. Guess which one I'm the most interested in right now? Except that these cars all have the smallest 63 kilowatt hour battery and front wheel drive only, so they're about as sporty as I am. Boo. Now, we've only been given this car for a couple of hours on a test track, so we can't really do any proper real-world range or efficiency tests. This is all about the way the Ariya rides and drives. So I'm starting slowly. Now, there are 3 driving modes as standard, which you access through this little haptic switch thing here in the center console, and you get Sport, Standard and Eco. Now, the e-Force 4-wheel drive cars also get a snow mode, which we haven't got here because this is 2-wheel drive. They do pretty much what you expect. Eco gets the most out of your range, Standard is standard, and then Sport sort of makes everything a little bit more peppy. The throttle feels a little bit sharper, it's got a little bit more sporty feeling. It's not night and day though. I mean, this car doesn't suddenly become a GTR no matter what they say.
One thing that is in the Ariya's favour is that it has perfect 50-50 weight distribution, at least in the 4-wheel drive models, and actually a lower centre of gravity than a Nissan LEAF, which means it feels stable and safe no matter what you do with it. It's happy going a bit quicker even if it only has 215 brake horsepower and a 0 to 62 time of 7.5 seconds. It's not slow, but it's also not a neck breaker. Even though this smaller battery car hasn't got that perfect weight distribution, it still feels stable and secure, and they're the kind of things you need in a family SUV.
Like a Nissan GTR? Bluntly, I have no idea because this isn't one of the 4-wheel drive versions, but it does feel stable and secure and competent, and on a slippery, wet winter road, they are very good words indeed. Even this 2-wheel drive car feels perfectly happy, even when you do go a bit faster. The steering is very light, little bit unconnected, but you can actually drive it around quite quickly and it feels fine. Yeah, it doesn't panic. I actually still quite like the zero gravity seats. They're not particularly well bolstered, so I do feel like I'm sloshing around a little bit, but they're comfy on the straight ahead. There's a lot to like about this, and don't forget this is the base car in the range.
And another thing I really like is that Nissan has stuck with the e-pedal system for brake regeneration. Now, this can feel pretty aggressive when you first engage it, but you get used to modulating the throttle to make it smooth. It really does make a one-pedal car, and that's good.
I'm not sure I'd need a huge amount more power though. I think I probably would like the 4-wheel drive. I get the feeling that the 4-wheel drive 302 horsepower car might be a bit of a sweet spot. Fast, but not too fast.
Once you've exhausted the battery and need to charge, you'll find that the smaller battery cars get 7.4 kilowatt AC charging as standard, with 22 kilowatts as an option, and the bigger batteries get 22 as standard, though that's not overly useful unless you have serious juice to your house. So you're more likely looking at 14 hours flat to full from a normal home wall box for the big 87 kilowatt hour battery, or 10 for a car like this one. Of more interest is the fact that all Ariyas get 130 kilowatt DC rapid charging, which to be honest is only okay. That's roughly 35 minutes from 10 to 80% on a big enough charger for the bigger battery, 31 for this car, though the batteries are liquid cooled, so they should always be on top form. And if you've ever seen the DC charge point on a Leaf called a CHAdeMO charger, you'll notice that the Ariya comes with a CCS connector instead, which is probably wise because it's the industry standard these days.
So, the Nissan Ariya. Well, full disclosure, I still want to do a full test on this car to figure out exactly how efficient it is because, to be honest, battering around a test track is not exactly representative. I also want to spend a bit more time with some of the driver assistance systems and figure out more of the gadgets. But on first impressions, I do actually think it's pretty good. We'll have to wait until the e-Force 4-wheel drive cars to work out whether mentioning the GTR sports car in this car's heritage is a bit of a red herring. But generally, I think the Ariya has all of the qualities that could make it a proper contender. It's more fun to drive than a VW ID4, and it's more interesting to look at than an Audi Q4 e-tron. One thing's for sure, if you're in the market for this sort of car, then before you make your final decision, you're going to have to get yourself into an Ariya. And that is a massive compliment.
If you want to know more about the Nissan Ariya or any of its competition from Audi, Ford, VW or even Kia and Hyundai, then please do log on to electrifying.com and we'll provide the answers you seek.